Hey, what's up, guys? Ronin Man here. Look, when you're reading the news these days, you really got to use your head because there's so many articles, there's so many news sources that are twisting information. Now, the information is there if you dig, but you got to dig and you got to use your brain because it's often not being presented for what it is. Just today I woke up this morning, I read the news, I came up to the pool, and I've already come across like two pretty extreme, I would say almost like forms of deception. I watched this. First thing I watched was this interview of a woman named Harriet Lerner. She wrote a book called The Dance of Anger, which I thought was a great book. And it was about how anger is like an important thing for humans. And it tells you, just like physical pain when you got a problem, you have something wrong with your leg or whatever, it tells you, okay, I got to be careful with that. I got to fix that, right? Pain tells you that. And anger tells you how you feel about life. So when you find yourself getting angry about something, it's almost like a message like that's something you value. It teaches you who you are. And anger is an important emotion for human beings. So it was a great book. I thought it was good. And then I watched it. I thought, well, I want to watch. I read the book, so I'll watch an interview of her on a podcast this morning. And so I started watching it, and like half the interview was. Now this is from the woman who did the research. Like this is the woman who figured out, like basically, like anger is often presented as like an evil thing, a bad thing, and she's basically saying no, anger is an important. It's something that it warns you, it tells you important messages, and the book's great. The problem is when you started to get off the book onto her own opinions about things, she actually misused her own data, in my opinion, pretty badly too, because half of the interview was about how women are not allowed to show anger, and like men are allowed to be angry and women are this and that and that. But that was not at all the focus of her research, which was quite interesting, was that anger is an important emotion. And there was nothing in her data that said men and women are different on this. Is that both men and women, when they find themselves feeling an emotion, it's an important message that this is something they care about and something to be paid attention to. But instead, she takes her whole narrative of, basically feminism into this discussion and completely changes it. It's like not even an honest interview at all. And there's a man interviewing her, so it's really tedious. I couldn't watch it. And so often we come so close to the truth, and it's just sabotage at the last second. So then I go on to the news, and I'm reading the news, and there's an article on the Drudge Report. It says about the importance of fathers in children's lives. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So I clicked on it, and the article was quite good. It just basically, there's an original video by a Bradford Wilcox, Bradford Wilcox, his research into the importance of the impact of fathers on children regarding child abuse, child neglect, and many other important issues. And so he was being interviewed by Christina Hoff Sommers, which I really like, and it was a great interview. It was he just like boom, 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 and in his data, I'll go through a couple of the points. Is that daughters who have here's the important thing: daughters raised in nuclear families are more likely to flourish educationally and professionally. And this is from data. This is peer-reviewed data. So they went into women in their 20s, and they looked at women how far did they go in their education, and they went farther, got better grades when the father was in the home. And they did, when they went back and they looked at them in their late 20s, women did better when they had a father in the home. And so basically saying like the nuclear family is very important. Now, I'm not making any argument either here or there, but this is like what the research says. Now, sometimes, again, it's like an inconvenient truth, right? That fathers are important, that intact families are important, right? Nobody really wants to know that, because we've kind of decided as a society that, it doesn't matter. Men aren't that important, and women can raise the children just fine and play the role of this. There's all this kind of like memes going around, but when you get data, that's not what it says. And this was a study across class lines, so very wealthy and very poor. Women with a father present, okay, so it wasn't just biological nuclear families. It was women with a father present were much less likely to become pregnant as teenagers. And they were women, especially daughters, who were raised by their father, with the father involved. Now, this one was not so clear. I didn't know it was biological intact families or when the father is emotionally connected and involved. It was a little bit unclear, but basically when men are very involved in the daughter's life, they're 9 times less likely to be physically and sexually abused. 9 times. And so basically children are much safer when they are raised with their father present. And whenever the father was not present, okay, so as is often the case, the increase, the chance of child abuse went up 9 times. Now, I don't think society is ready to hear this kind of thing. Society doesn't want to know this. They want to just like ignore it. So it's very interesting how this works and why it's so important to logically deduce things and to follow things. Don't believe logical fallacies and to use your brain. So I read the article. It was very accurate until the last paragraph. Let me read you the last paragraph. The last paragraph said, all this being said, if you don't have a dad in your life, you are still capable of great things. Now that's true, right? Father figures. Now here's the part that's completely, that just sabotages the whole argument. Again, this is not the research. This is basically you have a journalist using valuable research, and they're putting a link, like a video link, inside of a blog post. Okay, so here's where they put their own opinion in, and this basically sabotages the whole argument. Father figures come in many forms, and just because he might not be your biological father does not mean he is not important. Sometimes the people who are there for us are the most are the ones we not the ones we expect them to be, right? So basically, actually it's poorly written, but they're saying like their opinion in the end of this, but this is not what the research says. The research is very different. Now, sometimes this is difficult stuff, right? The research says a nuclear family with the father emotionally involved in the daughter's lives protects her life, her education, the chance she's going to be abused, the chance she's going to be a teenage mother, and all these basically which everybody would agree are terrible things for daughters. And the father is very important in the daughter's life. But even with this data, you have news sources basically negating the whole thing. Because in the end of the article, they're basically saying like, oh yeah, anybody can be a father, it doesn't matter. But logically, what's actually happening here, it's interesting because I thought about it this morning. And what they're actually saying in the blog post is actually more important, because what they're saying is that father figures come in many forms, and there's many types of men that are important. So what they're really saying is that the research is true. They're not negating the fact that the biological father and a nuclear family it equals a 9 times greater chance the daughter will not be sexually abused. Okay, that they're not negating. But what they're saying is they're saying that men are a very important influence on children, and that on top of that, uncles, other loving men are also very important. So really what they're saying is like what they're not trying to say. Because what they're actually saying is, yes, the biological father is the most important factor in sexual abuse of a daughter. And in her success in education and likelihood of becoming a teen mother, the father is the most important factor. And a biological father, and an intact nuclear family is the most important factor. But what they're actually saying is, they're saying even more than that, is that his friends, other men involved, other loving men in the child's life are also very important factors. So now that hasn't been researched, but that's just logically makes sense, right? Just like the mother has a very big impact on children, but other loving women will also have a big impact, right? So they're actually, the blogger, with what they're trying to do is they're trying to it's a sleight of hand. They're saying, yeah, but you can just have any kind of father and it's important. Now, I disagree that if you don't have a father, okay, see, it's so tricky how how the modern, I don't know, that like journalists are just twisting the facts and allowing children to be abused. But I don't disagree that if you don't have a father, of course, you have to make do with what you have. And that's one of the, there is a way to have a very successful life without a father. And that is true. But that's not what they're saying. That is if the father dies, let's say goes to war and passes away, then you just have to make the best do. But why would you, if you knew that the most important factor for the child being sexually abused was the biological father being at home in a nuclear family, why would you take that away? It's like you can swim with a rock tied to you, okay, but why would you do it? Why wouldn't you just swim in your bathing suit instead of being weighed down by a 100-pound rock? What is the point of deliberately sabotaging the chances of your success? And that's what they're not saying in the article. So when you read the news today, you just cannot take it on face value. You have to read deeper, because men are being methodically taken out of children's lives. And it's not just that. The value that you have as a man is being negated. And that's why you see so much suicide. That's why you see men dying so much younger than women. When you're not, it is your value and your, as a human, like the whole thing. Why when you see people committing suicide is because they're like, there's no meaning. I don't matter. Nothing matters, right? Nothing matters. When things matter, you're much less likely to commit suicide, to despair. Right. So when a like powerful news organization deliberately misuses very important data that can protect children in order to further an agenda, I just don't know what to do about this kind of stuff. I mean, we're talking about the Drudge Report here. It's known as a very conservative site, right? But they're allowing some SJW to basically say, and the author doesn't even put their name on the article, which is really hilarious. The site that it was on is called awarenissact.com, if you want to find it. But how do you navigate modern society? Like, how do you do it for yourself? Because it's not easy these days. It is fucking not easy, because even when you have good data, like what they're doing is like, okay, just in a nutshell, about clickbait, right? Clickbait, you're basically just trying to get people to click on an article. Then they get to the article, they don't read it. The headline tells them everything they need to know, and people don't take the time to read the article. That is something that an unscrupulous journalist will do in order to get clicks, in order to get SEO value, in order to make money on advertising, right? And they'll have a deliberately misleading title or exaggerated title or whatever. Now, there's another version of that, and that is what I'm talking about here, is you have a gem, okay, which is the report, which is the research by what was his name again? Bradford Wilcox, and then you're taking this video and you're relying on the fact that as a journalist that most people don't have time to watch the video. So what they're going to do is they're just going to read the summary. But the problem is the summary, at the end of the summary, it negates the whole point. It negates the whole point. And that negation is not without impact, because children will be physically and sexually abused because they will believe that review, that summary. And that's what's going on. I mean, it's fucking outrageous. It is so fucking outrageous. You can have fantastic research that can protect our children, and you can have a journalist just twisting it for their own benefit and to the child's detriment. And then, life moves on, right? Another man is kicked out of a child's life. Another child is abused. 9 more children are abused, 9 times greater, and nobody even notices. And there's no debate. Now, I am not going to debate the nuclear family because that is not my, what do you call it? Like one of my hot button issues. I just think that I'll leave that one to the MRAs. But I do care about kids getting abused. And that is fucking important. And that is probably like one of the biggest things. I think abuse of children is it's terrible. I can relate, and I don't like it. I don't want to see it happen. And when there's research out there that teaches me how to protect children, and then there's people deliberately using that in order to leave children vulnerable, I just feel like, fuck. I mean, dude, what is going on here? What are we allowing to happen? So if you have anything like that, where you're reading an article and it's useful information, but it's deliberately being twisted, tell me about it in the comment box, because this shit is dangerous, because it relies on the fact that you're busy and that you don't have time to we just don't have time to, when you buy toothpaste at Walmart, right? You don't buy it and then wonder if it's safe and send it to a chemistry lab to be tested for long-term cancer causing. It might cause cancer, but as long as there's toothpaste on it inside of a Walmart, you figure that's good enough, right? That's how we live our lives. We say, okay, that's good enough. That's safe enough, right? That's okay. I'll just move on. I'm busy. And this is how narratives, even if they come so close to the truth, so close to a good thing, they are just sabotaged and we move on. And so it's almost like his research didn't even exist. And those children that were abused don't exist. And we just, boom, next. And nobody takes the time, right? That's what I love about this whole community, is that guys that have brains and they're taking the time to break shit down. They're being honest with themselves. They're not, reactionary, where it's hey, everybody's an idiot, they're all idiots, blah, blah, blah. It's no, what's wrong here? What's wrong here is that you're using valuable data that can protect children for your own agenda. And it's being twisted to say that any man can be a father, but that's not the research. Now, I'm not saying that there couldn't be more research about the importance of men, even if they're not biological fathers, and I'd like to see that research, but that is not what this particular research talked about. And so this is what we have value here, right? Let's take that value, let's take that into consideration, and let's protect kids, right? And by protecting kids, we're not just protecting kids, we're making our lives better, and we're making society better. We're lowering crime, we're lowering teenage pregnancy, we're lowering abuse, we're making people happier, right? So let's not let people abuse children, increase crime and unhappiness, which is what, to me, that's what this journalist is doing in the end. That's the reality. That's the end result of what they're doing. Don't let it happen, at least in your own mind. All right, guys. I hope you guys have a great day, and talk to you later.